asked one day, and it said, "I suppose it was Benevola's doing, only I think every one gets one wish granted if they only wish hard enough." On the 55th day the Hedge-pig said, "Now, Princess dear, I'm going to begin to get you back your kingdom." And next morning the king came down to breakfast in a dreadful rage, with his face covered up in bandages. "This palace is haunted," he said. "In the middle of the night a dreadful spiked ball was thrown in my face. I lighted a match. There was nothing." The Queen said, "Nonsense, you must have been dreaming." But next morning it was her turn to come down with a bandaged face. And the night after the King had the spiky ball thrown at him again, and then the Queen had it, and then they both had it, so that they couldn't sleep at all, and had to lie awake with nothing to think of but their wickedness. And every 5 minutes a very little voice whispered, "Who stole the kingdom? Who killed the princess?" till the King and Queen could have screamed with misery. And at last the Queen said, "We needn't have killed the princess." And the King said, "I've been thinking that too." And next day the King said, "I don't know that we ought to have taken this kingdom. We had a really high-class kingdom of our own." "I've been thinking that too," said the Queen. By this time their hands and arms and necks and faces and ears were very sore indeed, and they were sick with want of sleep. "Look here," said the King, "let's chuck it. Let's write to Ozymandias and tell him he can take over his kingdom again. I've had jolly well enough of this." "Let's," said the Queen, "but we can't bring the princess to life again. I do wish we could." And she cried a little through her bandages into her egg, for it was breakfast time. "Do you mean that?" said a little sharp voice, though there was no one to be seen in the room. The King and Queen clung to each other in terror, upsetting the urn over the toast rack. "Do you mean it?" said the voice again. "Answer, yes or no." "Yes," said the Queen. "I don't know who you are, but yes, yes, yes. I can't think how we could have been so wicked."
"Nor I,"
said the King. "Then send for the French governess," said the voice.
"Ring the bell, dear," said the Queen. "I'm sure what it says is right. It is the voice of conscience. I've often heard of it, but I've never heard it before." The King pulled the richly jewelled bell rope, and 10 magnificent green and gold footmen appeared. "Please ask Mademoiselle to step this way," said the Queen. The 10 magnificent green and gold footmen found the governess beside the marble basin, feeding the goldfish, and bowing their 10 green backs, they gave the Queen's message. The governess, who, every one agreed, was always most obliging, went at once to the pink satin breakfast room where the King and Queen were sitting, almost unrecognisable in their bandages. "Yes, your Majesties," said she, curtsying. "The voice of conscience," said the Queen, "told us to send for you. Is there any recipe in the French books for bringing shot princesses to life? If so, will you kindly translate it for us?" "There is one," said the Princess thoughtfully, "and it is quite simple. Take a king and a queen and the voice of conscience. Place them in a clean pink breakfast room with eggs, coffee, and toast. Add a full-sized French governess. The king and queen must be thoroughly pricked and bandaged, and the voice of conscience must be very distinct." "Is that all?" asked the Queen. "That's all," said the governess, "except that the king and queen must have 2 more bandages over their eyes, and keep them on till the voice of conscience has counted 55, very slowly. "If you would be so kind," said the Queen, "as to bandage us with our table napkins. Only be careful how you fold them, because our faces are very sore, and the royal monogram is very stiff and hard, owing to its being embroidered in seed pearls by special command." "I will be very careful," said the governess kindly. The moment the King and Queen were blindfolded, the voice of conscience began,
1, 2, 3.
and Ozyliza tore off her disguise, and under the fussy black and violet spotted alpaca of the French governess was the simple, slim, cloth of silver dress of the Princess. She stuffed the alpaca up the chimney, and the grey wig into the tea cosy, and had disposed of the mittens in the coffee pot, and the elastic side boots in the coal scuttle, just as the voice of conscience said,
53, 54, 55,
and stopped. The King and Queen pulled off the bandages, and there, alive and well, with bright clear eyes and pinky cheeks and a mouth that smiled, was the Princess, whom they supposed to have been killed by the 1,000 arrows of their 1,000 archers. Before they had time to say a word, the Princess said, "Good morning, your Majesties. I'm afraid you have had bad dreams. So have I. Let us all try to forget them. I hope you will stay a little longer in my palace. You are very welcome. I am so sorry you have been hurt." "We deserved it," said the Queen, "and we want to say we have heard the voice of conscience, and do please forgive us." "Not another word," said the Princess. "Do let me have some fresh tea made, and some more eggs. These are quite cold, and the urn's been upset. We'll have a new breakfast. And I am so sorry your faces are so sore."
If you kissed them,
said the voice which the King and Queen called the voice of conscience,
their faces would not be sore any more.
"May I?" said Ozyliza, and kissed the King's ear and the Queen's nose, all she could get at through the bandages, and instantly they were quite well. They had a delightful breakfast. Then the King caused the royal household to assemble in the throne room, and there announced that as the Princess had come to claim the kingdom, they were returning to their own kingdom by the 3:17 train on Thursday. Every one cheered like mad, and the whole town was decorated and illuminated that evening. Flags flew from every house, and the bells all rang, just as the Princess had expected them to do that day when she came home with the 55 camels. All the treasure these had carried was given back to the Princess, and the camels themselves were restored to her hardly at all the worse for wear. The usurping King and Queen were seen off at the station by the Princess, and parted from her with real affection. You see, they weren't completely wicked in their hearts, but they had never had time to think before, and being kept awake at night forced them to think, and the voice of conscience gave them something to think about. They gave the Princess the receipted bills with which most of the palace was papered, in return for board and lodging. When they were gone, a telegram was sent off. Ozymandias Rex, Esquire, Chatsworth, Delamere Road, Tooting, England. Please come home at once. Palace vacant. Tenants have left. Ozyliza P. And they came immediately. When they arrived, the Princess told them the whole story, and they kissed and praised her, and called her their deliverer and the saviour of her country. "I haven't done anything," she said. "It was Erinaceus who did everything, and—" "But the fairies said," interrupted the King, who was never clever at the best of times, "that you couldn't get the kingdom back till you had 1,000 spears devoted to you alone."
"There are 1,000 spears in my back," said a little sharp voice, 'and they are all devoted to me.'